Welcome back to this very special episode of Strange Form. Before we get into the aliens figures, I need to take a minute to ask for your help. If you've noticed, over the last several months, I've had to slow way down on releasing episodes. Part of that's because I was also working on a very special project, which I will be airing next week. More on that in a minute. The other part is that I have had to balance this channel with other obligations. An episode like this one has multiple lighting setups and more than 70 shots across 4 lenses, and then quite a bit of editing. So each episode is a big time investment. And as many of you know, I've had a lot of trouble getting YouTube to promote my channel. After studying my analytics, I can see why. Most of my views come from search, as well as social media promotion, in no short part due to many of you who are sharing my content across many different platforms. Almost no traffic is being generated through YouTube suggestion, which has made organic growth very difficult. The number one repeated comment I get in the comment section is, "I just found this channel and I don't understand why it's not bigger." And honestly, I'm really trying to amend that, but it has been an uphill battle. Recently, with the success of Alien coming back into the public lexicon, the channel has started to enjoy more popularity through search, and that has put me at a place where I can capitalize on this sudden growth, and hopefully get the algorithm to start noticing the channel. But unfortunately, I'm at a point where I also need to keep the lights on, and may soon have to dedicate more time to stabilizing my family financially, which could mean a lengthy break from content creation. So if you would like to see the channel continue to create content, we are at a bit of a crossroads here, and I want to give you, the audience, a way that you can help grow and support the channel. Normally, I really don't like e-begging, but you can think of this episode in the same vein as a PBS fundraiser. My goal over the next 2 months is to produce 2 or more episodes a week, to the purpose of hopefully growing the audience to a place where the channel can be a bit more self-sustaining. So right now, there are 4 ways you can help support the channel financially. Number 1, through the Strange Form Patreon page, where I have tiers to fit most budgets, allowing you to become an official producer of the show. Number 2, through YouTube memberships. This is a 3-tier system which allows you to get perks such as membership badges and member shoutouts. Number 3, I have an Amazon store full of Strange Form merchandise, including t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other memorabilia, and I will be adding more designs and items as time goes on. Number 4, starting next week, I will be having a digital garage sale through my Instagram account. So if you aren't already, follow me on Instagram. It is a good place to get the second half of the story, as that's where I post a lot about upcoming episodes and behind-the-scenes content. The items I will be selling are quite a few pieces out of my Aliens collection, several of my Hot Toys Wonder Woman figures, and a couple of Suicide Squad Joker figures. The prices will be fair, but not bargain basement, as the goal is to give you the chance to buy rare and fun collectibles, some of which have been showcased on the channel, and return also help fund the channel for the next couple of months. So if you have the means, your patronage would be deeply appreciated. However, if you are not financially stable, please enjoy the channel without feeling any financial obligation. Other than monetarily, the second way you can help the channel is by liking, subscribing, and sharing. That last part is extremely important to the upcoming episode. The next episode will be a visual audio drama presentation of the first chapter of my book. If this episode does well, it may become a monthly part of the channel, or be turned into a separate podcast altogether. So if you enjoy this upcoming episode, please share it to everyone you know like there is no tomorrow. You, the audience, are the only way this story is going to find its footing. So with any luck, the future of the channel should look like 1 to 2 movie reviews, several product reviews, and 1 special storytime episode per month. And to everyone who has been sharing, liking, and subscribing, you are the sole reason this channel has made it as far as it has. And you have my heartfelt gratitude. Now, with my telethon out of the way, before we get back to the alien figures, I have a very special figure to unveil. Meet Nathaniel, the newest member of the Strange Form family. I thought about doing an unboxing, but he came in a rather difficult to open clamshell package, and honestly, my wife did most of the work getting him out. Shipping took a hot minute, but I'm told manufacturing and distribution is complex. He is a 1/1 scale human baby, and unfortunately, he doesn't come with any accessories or a stand, although these are all things that are offered by multiple third-party companies. If you're afraid the mask is going to scare him, it should be noted that when any of my children see Nightbreed promotional material, they always yell, "It's Daddy." So in my household, I've become rather synonymous with the mask, and I'm actually considering going to the Salem Halloween Bash this year dressed as Strange Form. So if you see someone dressed in the mask with a Strange Form hoodie, that's probably me. I'll let everyone know in upcoming shorts when I'll be there. Now let's look at this figure's paint applications and articulation. During this filming, he's about 4 days old, and as you can see, already shows an affinity towards the Star Beast. He has fully articulated fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, hips, knees, and feet, and currently a little less articulation around the head and neck. But I'm told this will be worked out in about 3 to 6 months. Right now, he can't be displayed without a stand, but that really doesn't matter because he has so many family members constantly wanting to display him in different positions. Now, I hope you all enjoyed this quick look at the newest Strange Form collectible, but I'm sure you're excited to get back to the Xenomorph extravaganza coming up. So, originally I was going to just look at the 1/4 scale Neca alien figures. But I realized that I would be doing a great disservice to the story if I didn't start somewhere towards the beginning. After the 1979 original Kenner Alien, and before Neca threw their hat in the ring and started producing alien figures pretty regularly, there wasn't much on the market, other than a smattering of child-oriented, soft-detail Kenner figures, which ran through the 90s, a handful of garage kits, a couple of Halcyon models, and a few fairly soft-detailed Japanese vinyl imports. The first American company to show any love to the adult collectors was Mcfarlane, who folded the Alien into their Movie Maniacs line with a deluxe Alien and Predator box set, first released in October 2002. Interestingly, this wasn't coined as Aliens vs. Predator, which had already enjoyed a popular Dark Horse comic book series run, but Alien and Predator, as it was a rendition of each creature from their first film. From 1998 to 2005, Mcfarlane Toys was on a hot streak, producing some of the best collectibles on the market at affordable prices. From paint applications to sculpt, there really wasn't any other company on the market coming close to the quality of Mcfarlane figures. But there was one issue, and that was that Mcfarlane was never really big on articulation. Most of his figures started as statues sculpted in static positions, and then they just segmented them up as they went into production. So figures usually only had 1 or 2 positions they looked correct in. And the big chap here is maybe one of the worst offenders when it comes to limited usable articulation. Nicknamed the Tiptoe Alien by a good deal of the community, this iteration was supposed to be more akin to a lot of the concept work rather than what actually appeared in the film. Crafted out of translucent plastic with subtle paint applications and a lot of rust-colored flecks spattered all over, this figure looked good in hand, but was little more than a lightly articulated statue. And there were 2 separate releases of this figure, the first being the box set, and then an identical figure was sold separately, with a small base and 3 facehuggers a few years later. The base this box set came with had 3 eggs that could be cracked open to hold the facehuggers. The base also had little watch battery-powered lights in each egg, which were really too dull to be seen in anything other than a pitch-black room, but was a neat little gimmick nonetheless. Though the figure doesn't sport an articulated jaw, the inner mouth does jet out, and is spring-loaded and actuated by a little button on the back of the head. And like I said earlier, the places where Mcfarlane cut to create articulation are awkward. The creature having 1 tiptoe foot is something I wish they actually would have amended in the standalone release. But even with a few of these issues, at the time this was released, it was the coolest thing any of us had ever seen. It was fairly movie accurate, well painted, and on top of that, even with a bendy tail, this figure has lasted over 2 decades without any major degradation, where my Mezco didn't even make it 1 full rotation around the sun. And currently this box set can still be picked up on eBay for around $100, which is probably right at where it would be if it were released in today's market. Around 2 years after the release of the Alien and Predator box set, Mcfarlane would again use the sculpt for a special 12-inch figure, which even today, other than the Hot Toys offering, is the only figure to come even close to being a proper 1/6 scale big chap. Mcfarlane would also release a 12-inch Predator, a 12-inch Aliens vs. Predator Grid Alien, and Scar Predator in the same year. This was around the time I was becoming less enamored with Mcfarlane figures. The quality was starting to wane, and the offerings were getting less interesting, and personally, I didn't really like a lot of the Aliens vs. Predator figures they had released. I felt that the legs were awkwardly posed, and the head was too small. In fact, I ended up taking mine apart and reassembling it in a more dynamic action pose. This being the one that currently sits in my daughter's room, and the other is in storage. Now, I should let you know that this 12-inch big chap has remained factory sealed until this very video, so for over 2 decades I have resisted the urge to open it up, but decided it would be unfair to make you all look at it through the window packaging. To be honest, this thing has more twist tie-downs than any figure I've ever opened. And one thing I never noticed until right now is that the inner mouth was actually installed upside down on this one. If you have one and it's the same way, let me know in the comment section. As you can see here, next to the Hot Toys Lieutenant Ripley, the figure is almost true 1/6 scale, but a little bit too thin and stylized to look right next to the Hot Toys figure. Out of the box, this thing is pretty impressive. They went with a more frosted look for the dome than the original, and though much of the plastic is the same translucent material as the original, the paint is much thicker, so it's much more opaque, and was almost impossible to tell that it was see-through until I put a flashlight right up on it. Overall, this isn't a bad figure, but does suffer from the same posability issues that the original did. There really is only 1 or 2 poses it looks right in. On top of the base, the figure also comes with 3 facehuggers, which my 4-year-old son just thought was the coolest thing in the whole world and begged me to let him be the one to pose them, so you can thank him for their amazing placement in this segment. This one definitely dwarfs the original, and all in all isn't a terrible display piece at all, so I think it might be worth hunting down if you can find one for under $100, but over $100 there are definitely better offerings out there. Now, before we leave the Mcfarlane products, I wanted to touch on some of his other Alien figures, because he was also the first to market with a 7-inch scale Alien Queen. Released in 2003 as part of Movie Maniacs Series 6, the Queen Deluxe box set was based more on James Cameron and Stan Winston's concept design work than the actual Queen we saw in the film. A decidedly bulkier take on Her Majesty, Mcfarlane's Queen also came with the chestburster victim from the beginning of Aliens, complete with a chest-bursting play-action mechanic. Though not strictly movie-accurate, the Queen is a relatively striking piece and an interesting nod to what could have been. Movie Maniacs 6 would also see the release of the dog alien from Alien 3 and the Resurrection alien, which, like their predecessors, would also suffer from being overly stylized and less film accurate. But in my opinion, the worst in Mcfarlane's Alien line would come in 2004 with the release of the Alien Warrior, basically a lightly retooled big chap from the previous Movie Maniacs release. This figure has one of the worst head sculpts in Mcfarlane history, with almost no clean, unwarped teeth versions making it to market. The Alien Warrior, now nixing the Movie Maniac line in favor of the newly rebranded Alien and Predator line, this figure would signal the beginning of the end of Mcfarlane's run with the Alien license. But it wouldn't be long before Neca picked up the rights to the Alien franchise, and in 2008, Neca would release a 7-inch standalone Big Chap, as well as a quarter-scale 18-inch counterpart. They would also release a full line of 7-inch Alien vs. Predator Requiem figures, and Prometheus figures followed in 2012, but it wouldn't be until 5 years after their first Alien release that Neca would give the whole Alien franchise a line all its own in 2013. The articulation and movie accuracy of the 2008 Neca Big Chap release was decidedly better than Mcfarlane's, but still had much more limited articulation and poorer accuracy than more modern releases. But as you will see throughout the rest of this video, it was a work in progress. And fortunately, Neca is a company that's not afraid to re-release and refine their product. Having never been able to find the Kenner Alien, in 2008 the 18-inch Alien Big Chap was about as close as I thought I was ever going to get. And for many years, this was the crown jewel of my Alien collection. Though the articulation was more limited than the modern release, the figure was easy to get into a good pose, and my only major complaint at the time was that the gums were entirely too visible, and that the mouth section didn't look quite right. Other than that, it was an awesome figure. The paint applications were okay, if somewhat non-existent in areas, but this figure did have one movie-accurate detail that wasn't even repeated on the newer iterations, and that's that the details are drawn on in the inner portion of the head beneath the dome. Most Alien figures go for a significant amount of raised detail here, but Giger's original costume was smooth along the side of the inner head, and the details were hand-drawn rather than sculpted in. And this figure had one other point over Mcfarlane's original release: an articulated jaw. Though the teeth couldn't clasp completely shut, the mouth could be opened and closed. So as far as the evolution of toy design went, this was the next step. Now, before we move on to the rest of the quarter-scale Alien line, I wanted to take a minute to show you every Big Chap color and sculpt released by Neca. I omitted the Alien isolation figure, as the legs make it too different from the original Big Chap to be considered one. And the version that comes with Burke in the 2-pack may have the dome head, but the rest of the body is actually the Alien from the second film. Technically, you could throw in the non-bloody 40th anniversary packaging version, but it's identical to the Ultimate Alien figure. And you could probably also throw in the first release of the 2015 Big Chap, as the one seen here is the Walmart exclusive release. So, to my estimation, there are around 11 distinctly different 7-inch Big Chap figures that have come out of Neca over the last 16 years, and 13 total releases, which include the 2008 release, the 2015 release, the blue Kenner tribute figure, the black domed Alien vs. Predator 2-pack figure, the red Alien Genocide figure, the 2015 prototype, the 2015 Walmart release, the 40th anniversary standalone edition, the 40th anniversary prototype, the 40th anniversary bloodied version, the 40th anniversary Giger version, the Ultimate Alien version, and the Ultimate Alien green glow-in-the-dark convention exclusive. If you can think of any releases of this design I've missed, let me know in the comments. So here we have the 2008 and 2015 releases side by side. There are fairly massive differences between these two, especially when it comes to articulation. And though my 2015 version has a fairly warped right side of the mouth, it is actually an official release, rather than one of the millions of knockoffs that are now circulating the auction sites. One of the problems with NECA quality control is that there are so many problems with figures out there, it's really difficult to tell the difference between knockoffs and the original releases. Sometimes I wonder how many knockoff versions are actually just figures that didn't pass quality control, but end up on the secondary market anyway. And as some of you may not know, NECA has such a problem with knockoffs that there probably is one or two in your collection, even if you bought them straight through Amazon, and even some retail stores and comic book shops. But in 2015, the real star of the show was the 1/4 scale figure. NECA set the bar pretty high with this one, being one of the best looking alien figures on the market even to date. Standing over 22 inches tall, this figure has an incredible amount of detail. This one is one of the most film-accurate figures ever released. Originally released with two random variants, being a closed lip version and an open lip version, this being the curled open lip release, the closed lip version had a decidedly more simian look. At the time, I decided not to pick up both releases because the 1/4 scale prototype version only came with the closed lips, so I ended up getting both sculpts having both figures. But if you decide you want to track this one down, just know that there is a variation, and you probably should ask about it before committing to buy it, especially if you want one over the other. Across the runtime of the original Alien, the creature has two slightly different looks, and that's a frosted dome due to the material fogging up, and a more clear dome seen in only a couple shots. Personally for me, this is the look I prefer, but the 40th anniversary quarter-scale figures seek to give us the other look. So there is a distinct difference between the two figures. The paint scheme of this one is mostly black and green with some rust-colored highlights. And one of my favorite aspects of this release, which isn't really replicated almost anywhere, is the fact that you can close the mouth completely. And the bottom canines clasp over the top canines, which have the same indentation seen in the actual shooting costume. And the only major complaint I've ever seen about this one is that the lips are too white and are a bit distracting. This is also something that the 40th anniversary version does differently. But I've also seen content creators like Dean Knight repaint this portion of the figure to great effect. Personally, I've never been completely in love with NECA's 7-inch alien figures. I like them, but there are others I prefer out there. But their 1/4 line, and especially this one, is one of the top alien figures ever produced by the US market. And in my top 10 countdown, it doesn't come in far behind some of my absolute favorite releases. It's big, it's burly, it's imposing, it's well articulated, has a really well done paint scheme, and is mostly movie accurate. And if you look at him next to the 2008 release, he embarrasses almost everything, from the sculpt to the paint applications all the way to the articulation. And as you see here, after the dome has been removed, the only thing that the 2008 release might have over the 15 is that the 15 has inaccurate sculpting details on the side of the head, rather than just the drawn-on pattern. But honestly, it looks great under the frosted dome, so the complaint of getting more detail would be nitpicking at best. One interesting sculpt detail that NECA used across every single quarter-scale alien is the tail. From 2008 all the way to current, and even including the Alien's Warrior, the tail mold has remained identical, but with different paint applications. So for NECA, I guess that was an if it ain't broke, don't fix it piece. Next, we come to the 1/4 scale translucent prototype suit Big Chap. Identical in every way to its 2015 counterpart, except being cast in a semi-translucent amber-colored plastic and painted with a light cream-colored top coat. This figure seeks to address the what-if question regarding Giger's original concept for the creature, as originally the alien costume was supposed to be transparent, but the material was too fragile and the costume was deemed far too complicated, causing the special effects team to move to a more opaque design. Despite the box and production material showing the curled lip version, the closed lip design was the only 1/4 prototype variant released. Another interesting variation of the closed lip design is that the inner mouth is also in a clasped down closed position, something that's also true of the 2015 closed lip variant as well. So if you want the closed mouth version, but don't want to have to buy the 2015 version twice just to get the slightly different sculpt, go for the open, snarled lip version of that one, and then get this one, which will give you both designs. Honestly, I think this is a really cool concept, but I'm surprised that we got a 1/4 version of something like this, and yet never got a 1/4 Alien 3 runner. If you're listening, Neca, a lot of us would pick up the Alien 3 figure in that scale. Technically, this one is a scaled-up version of the 2016 prototype release. The later 40th anniversary release seen here has silver teeth and nails, and slightly more subtle applications of the cream-colored paint. So there's even differences between those two 7-inch releases. As you can see, this figure has all of the same articulation as its earlier counterpart, just simply cast in a different material. And as I said before, next to the curled lip version, the closed lip Big Chap has a decidedly simian look, and is unique in that there aren't really many figures that sport that closed lip design, even though the creature appeared this way several times throughout the film. So all in all, a pretty striking addition to the large-scale family, and definitely worth hunting down if you want something unique for your collection, as it can still be found for a fairly good price, and unfortunately, until the economy heals, we probably won't be seeing Neca take chances on such unique offerings anytime soon. So for the foreseeable future, what's out there is what's out there. Now, for our last stop on the giant Big Chap train, we have the 40th anniversary Kenner Alien packaging 1/4 scale Big Chap. Though it has the exact same sculpt and tooling as the previous two figures, this one displays a vastly different paint scheme. For the 40th anniversary of the 1979 original, Neca decided to go with the Kenner Alien motif for all of its packaging, but the most reminiscent of that classic figure is the 1/4 scale version. As you can see here, we have the original Kenner next to the 40th anniversary, and the Neca tried to lovingly reproduce the classic packaging, only deviating in two panels. In the first, the 40th anniversary shows Kane in the egg field, rather than Brett being attacked, and the second, Neca decided against having a child actor playing with the toy on the side panel. Other than that, this is a brilliant send-up to the original packaging, and one I purchased for the sole reason of displaying in the box rather than opening it up. But again, anything for you guys. So I will be unboxing this one for the first time, letting us take a closer look at the differences between this and the previous release. I should note that my packaging has a slight gouge on the back, which allowed me to get this one for under $100 at the time it was released. But I have been thinking about mocking up a classic Toys R Us price sticker to put over the blemish, which, for me personally, would actually add to the packaging rather than detract. As this one is going to be put back into the box exactly as it was, I will not be clipping any of the twist ties, but rather painstakingly unthreading each one, and then rethreading them back after the review. Right out of the box, you can immediately tell how different the paint scheme is. Where the original had a flat greenish hue with rust highlight, this one is more of a glossy black and gray with some mud brown highlights and washes. The lips are washed in that muddy brown, causing them to be less obvious, which looks good, but unfortunately the plastic on the elbows seems to be made of something slightly softer, as they aren't holding form and are much more malleable than the 2015 release. The dome is translucent with black transition towards the front and back, making the skull much less obvious than many other releases. However, the skull is still more hidden by the frosted 2015 version. I completely get what they're doing here, in trying to make it as close to the Kenner counterpart as possible, as well as paying tribute to the way the Big Chap presented under the lighting of the film. But personally, I like the 2015 release color scheme much better. However, the more subtly painted lips and paint applications around the head, other than the dome, are extremely well done. So if I were to Frankenstein something together, I would probably put the 40th anniversary head on the 2015 body, but the 2015 dome on that head. Also, the 40th anniversary version has a less film-accurate dark gray inner mouth. So for me, the 2015 release still is going to be my go-to out-of-the-package display model. But other than the paint scheme and the glossier appearance, the 40th anniversary version is primarily the exact same figure. So either of them would be an awesome addition to your collection, should you only want one larger figure. With the dome off, you can see that the earlier version has a much wider head, but this is hidden by the semi-opaque nature of the frosted dome. Although since they went with the Kenner packaging, one thing I do wish that the newer 40th anniversary version did was have glow-in-the-dark paint underneath the dome, similar to its 1979 counterpart. But I think for most collectors that would play is too silly. The 40th anniversary version tried to do some subtle tiger striping around the original costume, but at least on mine, it wasn't done terribly well and plays a little like white polka dots all over the legs and butt. I think in the end, this one comes down to taste. If you want a more black, slick-looking figure, go for the newer one. If you want something with a more complex paint scheme, go for the older version. But they're both good. Now lastly, we come to the 1/4 scale Alien Warrior from James Cameron's Aliens. Released in 2016, this was in and out of the stores rather quickly, largely because it was produced in smaller numbers than any of their other large figures. And though I have it displayed next to the Ultimate Aliens Warrior, I believe this one's sculpt was actually based on Neca's earlier release of the Alien Warrior, as the hands are sculpted into a static position rather than have the hinge joint on the newer release. That being said, this one did enjoy a bit of retooling, as its proportions are much better than the earlier version, and it definitely has crisper detail. This is actually my second favorite figure based on Cameron's sequel, the first being the incredible Hot Toys Alien Warrior. But this one really seems to capture the insect-like creepiness of the creature from the second film. Black with blue highlights to suggest the color scheme of Cameron's masterpiece, this one has the same torso, pelvis, back tubes, dorsal spine, and tail as the previous Big Chap releases, but with brand new head, arms, legs, hands, and feet sculpts, with well-placed articulation everywhere. This figure is hands down the best posable Aliens Warrior ever produced. And I say that because though the Hot Toys version has a better design, it has barely any articulation. So if you're going for articulation, this is the one. My only complaint would be that the hands could be just a tiny bit smaller, but overall the proportions do look really nice. I would say that if you can manage getting this one at under $200, he's definitely worth picking up. And Neca even went as far as to give him a new inner mouth sculpt that looks more sinewy than the Big Chap counterpart. I also like the fact that his mouth was designed to completely close, so the fit and finish engineering on this one is really commendable. Now, if you ever wondered what this figure would look like with a dome, I did a little photo shoot, and you can see it over on my Instagram page. Like I said before, Instagram is a good place to follow me if you want to see what I'm doing between episodes. Now that we've come to our conclusion, let's take a minute to look at the entire collection side by side. If you are a serious completionist, you probably could add one more to this group with the 2015 closed mouth variant. But for all intents and purposes, this is the complete evolution of the figure. From Neca's impressive first offering in 2008, the company has been consistently improving upon its product, giving us some of the best and most impressive articulated alien products on the market. From making sculpt and articulation changes to vastly different paint schemes, Neca has done more than just pulled the same sculpt out and thrown it in a different package. And from my understanding, there is also going to be a reissue of the 40th anniversary edition in the near future. So keep your eyes peeled if you're still hunting for that one. Now here are the figures next to their smaller counterparts, which the astute viewer, Michael Connolly, was able to identify every single figure based on a 30-second short I put up. But for everyone else, from left to right, we have the 7-inch 2008 release, the 18-inch 2008 release, the 7-inch Walmart 2015 reissue, the 2015 1/4 scale, the 40th anniversary 7-inch prototype, the 1/4 scale prototype, the 40th anniversary 7-inch Alien Giger version, the 40th anniversary 1/4 scale, and lastly the 7-inch Ultimate Alien Warrior in blue, with the 1/4 scale Alien Warrior. All told, Neca has put out some amazing collectibles over the years, and though the prices are sort of out of control at the moment, there are still some deals to be had, especially through eBay and Mcfarlane. So if any of these are still something you're trying to hunt down, don't lose hope. They still pop up pretty regularly. Now as we come to a close, I really hope you enjoyed this episode and will look out for the upcoming story episode next week, where we will be looking at the first chapter of my book. And again, if you enjoyed this content, it would help the channel if you liked, comment, subscribe, and of course share, as well as look out for ways in which you can financially support the channel in the description. So let's see if we can push this channel into the public consciousness. Strange Form signing off. And as always, remember, never stop collecting.